All right, we're back for Daily Gospel, and we're here for a pretty relevant issue, I would say. We're going to be talking about, let me just start by naming a few websites you might be familiar with. Have you heard of DraftKings or FanDuel, Prize Picks, Underdog Fantasy, or other sports betting websites? If you've heard of them, we're talking about sports betting today.
I can't help but get bombarded by ads all the time. Anytime I go online, there's always, sign up for this, sign up for that. Obviously, Super Bowl is now dominated by talk about sports betting. There's like articles about how many times would Taylor Swift appear on screen. Would it be less than 6 times, more than 6 times? Like that was an actual thing you could bet on, right? You can bet on the color of a player's shoes that they're going to wear. You could bet. I mean, it's kind of like anything and everything now. Involves sports betting. It's pretty crazy.
Right, and whereas previously it was something you might have done under the table with your friends, betting on a game or whatever, it's now become a huge industry. It seems like around $450 billion has been spent on sports betting since the ban on it was lifted in 2018. Yeah. So that is a huge industry.
38 states now.
Yeah.
And it's very significant. So our question today is this a harmless hobby or is it a serious sin? Which is it? And I'm sure you have an opinion on sports betting, gambling, whatever you want to call it. There's no doubt that this movement has impacted our culture, right? In states where it's legal, the average household spends $1,100 a year on sports betting. That's, for a lot of people, a very significant amount of money. Many people have argued there's a link between new bankruptcies and sports betting. In states where it's been legalized, there's been an average of a 28% increase in bankruptcy filings. So
wow.
It doesn't mean that that's exactly the only reason, but it's certainly not contributing for a lot of people to making wise financial decisions. So how do we engage with this? As Christians, can we do this? Can we have fun with it? Or should we stay away from it?
Yeah, I think at the outset, we just have to point out there aren't any scripture passages that say, thou shalt not go on DraftKings and bet on the football game. Obviously, it's not something that specific in the Bible.
Take the parlay.
But the question that we're going to consider today is there any reason from Scripture that the heart behind it or some other aspect of it is something that we should be concerned about as Christians?
Yeah, and I would put this in the category of so many different issues that are unclear in the sense of, okay, there's good reason to believe that doing this in moderation would be okay, but it's important to examine the heart and to see the addictive potential of this kind of a pastime or hobby.
Yeah.
So a few heart issues we could look at. The first is greed. Love of money is deadly serious. I'll read 1 Timothy 6:10. It says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. So it's not saying here, we often quote this as love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
No, there's lots of things that cause evil, but all kinds of things come from the love of money, right? A willingness to engage in different kinds of sins, to cut corners, to lie, deceive. All those things can come from love of money. And so love of money is incredibly serious. And so often that can be the root. And that's kind of straightforward, but hey, I want to have a ton of money, and this is a way to do that. And that's greed.
Yeah, this is slightly aside of the issue, but if you look at the gambling industry and casinos and things like that, there is a history or a record or I guess kind of an understanding that a lot of people are, they go to Vegas for a weekend or whatever and have a good time. But there's also a more sinister side of gambling where you could talk about like crime that's involved with either just surrounding a casino, or you could even say that, everyone's just over drinking or things like that, like going along with gambling. And so that being a root of different evils is something that I think, is another thing to consider.
And again, I'm not saying as a Christian you can't go to Vegas,
Yeah.
but it's interesting that gambling tends to be associated with other vices.
Right.
Would be a way to putting it. So you have to be mindful of that. If you're engaging in this, is it out of a heart of greed? Second heart issue we could point to is laziness. So in wanting to gain wealth, you don't want to do it God's way. You want to do it your way. So it's not wrong to want to be financially secure. It's not wrong to want to be wealthy. It is wrong to be greedy and to want it more and more and more. But if you want to be well off, you don't gain wealth in ways that cut corners or simply take advantage of somebody else. So this is a real danger here. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." So the reality is, when you get wealth by cutting corners, by obtaining it in some sort of way, like you would through gambling, it tends to go away. And you can look at this in terms of people who've won the lottery and how a lot of them use it. A lot of their lives actually aren't better off in the long run because that wealth can really destroy them, and they end up wasting it, squandering it on things that are not good for them. But if you're gathering because of hard work, steadily, little by little, that through wise investments, right, that actually is a way to gain and to keep wealth. And again, wealth is not a bad thing.
What would you say, just a counter argument to that came to my mind, what do you say about someone who's like, well, I spend tons of time looking at all the stats and thinking about, really carefully about the sports bets I'm going to make, it's not just some like whim, like, oh, put me on black or whatever on the roulette wheel, but it's, a really carefully considered, a lot of time goes into it. I even think of like, could you say something like day trading could be something?
And I have to be honest that often if you're going into the stock market with no knowledge, no planning, you just are like, I heard GameStop is hot right now, then you may be doing the same thing. And it could work well, it could end up really badly. It often ends up really badly, right? But I would say in that case, so let's say your problem is not laziness, your problem is you know every stat in the book, you've devoted your life to this. Well, then I would say, okay, your hard work and your effort is going to something that doesn't actually benefit people. So you may be able to make money off it, right? You may be able to count cards in casinos and make money that way. But what could you have done with that time and investment to honor God? So we're supposed to be stewards of our energy, of our time, of our wealth, all these things. And day traders, in contrast, actually do provide an important function in the stock market. Which we could get into, but you can still go into day trading out of greed, laziness, all these things. I just think reality will hit you really quickly with that. Yeah. You need to know your stuff, and you need to be investing carefully, trading carefully. Yeah. But going back to the idea of laziness, gambling very often seeks quick wealth rather than faithful stewardship. And so, if you want wealth without work, you are maybe inclined to acting very foolishly. Which brings me to the third thing in terms of the heart issues behind gambling, which is just plain foolishness. You are not your own. The Bible's clear about that. What you have is a gift from God, right? James 1 says every good and perfect gift is from above. So God gives to us. He entrusts us with his resources, and then he calls us stewards. So a steward is by definition somebody who maintains or manages something that doesn't belong to them. So what we have doesn't belong to us, it belongs to God. So honoring God means that you'll take calculated risks with the wealth you have. It doesn't mean you hide it under a rock. We see that in the parable of the talents, right? Where really you should be taking risks in order to earn more and to grow that wealth. But this is very often major risks that are unwise and that could depend on so many different factors, right?
Right. The risk-reward calculation might be
it's way skewed.
Yeah.
So Proverbs 22:3 says, "The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it." So you have to take into consideration the amount of risk that you're willing to take and will this honor God. And there's an addictive element with that risk. So some people are very risk averse. They don't want to be risky. I'm more that way. That's kind of my standard, is I I'm never drawn to lottery tickets. I'm not drawn to things that are risky. I wasn't raised that way. But for a lot of people doing these risky things, it gives them a dopamine hit. It gives them a buzz. And that buzz can be very addictive. You keep going back to it because the danger, right, the risk is so enticing. And that addictive cycle will mean you have to wager more and more to keep feeling that sense of escape or, pleasure or whatever. C.S. Lewis called it an ever-increasing desire for an ever-diminishing pleasure. Mm-hmm. And that is how addiction works, right? And you can be addicted to, really pretty much anything. But there are certain things that are much more common to be addicted to, and gambling would be one of those. So common. About 2 million Americans. Right?
Yeah, common and potentially destructive, too. You hear stories of people, you even alluded to a potential correlation between sports betting and bankruptcy potentially, but you hear about, at least even just with casinos, people blow everything they have going to these casinos. It's gambling addiction's sure. real and harmful. So.
For sure. And very often you end up then using other people's resources, family resources, or even beyond yourself, right?
Right.
And then you're tempted towards other kinds of sin. Because again, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil.
Yeah.
So you'll steal, you'll embezzle from your employer, whatever, right, in order to keep having something to bet. And there's a lie there, which is, well, this next bet is going to pan out. Mm-hmm. There's the sunk cost fallacy, right, which is, well, I've already invested X amount, so I might as well put more in because this time I'm going to win, right? It's come up black 10 times, and now it has to come up red. Well,
doesn't have to.
That's not how it works. That's not math. Mikey's our math guy, right? So he knows that's not the case. That's not how statistics work. But so engaging with something like gambling is similar to engaging with smoking tobacco or drinking alcohol, where we'd say it'd be really hard to say from Scripture that these things are sinful inherently. They can be done in moderation, but keep a watch on yourself as you're engaging with that, because you want to make sure. Hey, I had a cigar with a friend. Well, now it's turning into I'm having 2 a day. Whoa, something's really wrong, right? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I'm being drawn to this because it's an escape from a difficult thing. Or with alcohol, right? Yeah. That you can say having a drink, but if you're getting blacked out drunk, there's a real problem. Or if you get a headache in the evening because you haven't had a drink yet, you're now alcohol dependent. We would call that an alcoholic, mm-hmm. and that's very serious. So think about it, right? What are you looking to this for? Is this a fun thing that you engage in once in a while and you're in control of, or are you being controlled by it? We got to really ask ourselves tough questions. It made me think of Proverbs 23, which warns us, I think, about all different categories of things like this that can be destructive. Proverbs 23:1 says, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you and put a knife to your throat if you are given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. Do not eat the bread of a man who is stingy. Do not desire his delicacies, for he is like one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. So this passage is talking about you're seeing something, you're enticed by it, you want it. Be careful about that. The imagery here is very visceral, right? This idea of putting a knife to your throat. It's sort of like you're threatening yourself and reminding yourself of your own mortality in order to counterbalance the draw you have from looking at this food or wine or wealth or whatever it is. And so we should take that kind of caution with these things that are potentially addictive, potentially destructive. So do I see it as a sin if you want to bet $5 in the Super Bowl with your friends and have a little pool going, or you want to do fantasy sports? No, I just think that would be outside the scope of Scripture. It's being legalistic at that point to make up a rule like that. But do I think it's a sin to bet your life savings on the games and game in hope of doubling your money and retiring early? Yeah. I think that's almost certainly grounded in heart issues that are foolish, greedy, lazy, any of the above. And so that would be something where I'd say, no, you've got some issues there that are beneath the surface. It's not as simple as just gambling right or wrong. It's really, what is your heart inclined towards? What are you doing with your life that you would go to that kind of a length? So Yeah, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know we both would. Is there something in what we said that you agree or disagree with? Is there something that we should have said that we missed out on? I'd love to hear, and maybe you have some experience with this in your own life. So please comment and share your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching Daily Gospel. You can help us out by subscribing to the channel and commenting on this video down below. We have a great library of in-depth Bible studies, commentary on current social issues, and weekly sermon uploads as well. And if you want to support our ministry, there's a link down below.